It's a wonderful day in the homiehood, a wonderful day for a homie. Won't you be my homie to Taro? One thing that is obviously dominating headlines is the situation in Memphis, where there's been another murdering of a black man by police. In this case, it's Tyree Nichols. You've probably heard about this, and it's really, I suppose, encouraging to see that a lot of people are coming out to protest, and it does feel like a a reawakening for the Black Lives Matter movement and the police abolitionist movement, which has kind of fizzled away in the wake of George Floyd's murder. And I do know that a lot of those organizations that were created in the wake of George Floyd's murder, or were getting a lot of support in the wake of George Floyd's murder, have now they have trouble like getting the same amount of funding, and it's kind of hard for them to continue doing the work that they set out to do when the Black Lives Matter movement was really at its peak. So, rest in peace, Tyree Nichols. And we have not really done an excellent job. I would say, in a way, the defund the police movement has been in large like a failure, because I mean it really is difficult to create the type of systemic change that is necessary. And I know here in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada, I believe this evening there's going to be a vote about whether they should increase the police budget, and a lot of the city councilors, it might even be a unanimous vote, I'm not sure, are working, are essentially like they are going to increase the police budget for, I don't even know. There's no good reason in my eyes why they should be getting more money. So the defund the police movement, which I definitely am a believer in, unfortunately has not have had a lot of movement. Okay, great. Angel Rye is covering it for the Trent Arthur newspaper, so hopefully, actually when that comes out, Angel Rye, we should cover it here on stream as well. Or you could come on and talk about it even. So I guess they have done some actions in Memphis, such as disbanding the city's Scorpion unit, which is kind of just like, why even have a unit that's named the Scorpion unit, especially, now that they've killed someone, these cool names that they've labeled themselves, yeah, no, maybe they're not so cool. So a lot of people have probably been following this. I mean, we'll continue to be following this. I have not personally watched the footage. So there is kind of a article here that is like, why did US media make the near universal decision to show the Tyree Nichols video? And I think this is kind of like a interesting question as to whether we should watch the video or should not watch the video, whether news outlets have a duty to show you the video or to not show you the video, or what kind of context they're going to put it in. Because I mean, one thing that is obviously concerning is that like Fox News is going to obviously put their own spin on this, downplaying the video significance and suggesting that Mr. Nichols might have somehow been to blame. One of the anchors here on Fox suggested that, oh, maybe they were on something at the time of the murder, which is just like absurd. Like, because even if you're on something, also like you shouldn't be killed by a bunch of police officers. Now they are saying that, Tyree Nichols was a black man and 5 of the officers were also black men. And one thing I saw is that there are potentially up to 9 officers involved with this murder. And I saw in one of the body cam footage is. I saw this on Twitter. I haven't seen the full video, but I just saw a couple pictures on Twitter. Is like the hands of like white officers or a white officer. So, it my understanding, I guess, again, I think these details are still coming out, but is that there are probably more people involved than just the 5 black officers that you're probably seeing all over the news and social media. So I think it's good to keep the conversation where it needs to be, and I think it's the institution of policing that is inherently flawed, and the culture of policing is inherently violent and colonial and racist, right? And it's called ACAB for a reason, and it's called all cops are B words. Okay, now I'm just doing this for YouTube, censoring myself. For a reason, right? Like, because there's no excuse for a person of color who's a cop or a woman who's a cop when they're part of this racist, violent institution that is policing. Augustus Fire here saying, unfortunately, the paramedics got in trouble too because they were held back by the cops. Oh, really? I mean, that is so. They were. What are they supposed to do? Fight the cops so that they can save someone's life? If you have any links on that, I'd like to see it. And one thing that I took away from this video, I guess some people were encouraging that instead of watching the video of Tyree Nichols dying at the hands of police, they wanted to share this video of his life where he is skateboarding instead. So why don't we just take a moment and watch a man who loved skateboarding skateboard? Let's see. So much respect. I am gonna pause it for a moment because I'm a little worried about the music. But I think also it's just important to acknowledge that like this is a human being. Tyree Nichols is like a person who lived. This is what they love to do with their life, right? Like, we can watch the video of them being murdered and remember them for that, but we should also take the time to remember them as someone who lived. Damn. Hey, wait, what's gonna? I thought what was gonna happen with that fountain? I thought like he was gonna jump over that fountain somehow. All right, they're blocking this gate in. Okay, so big respect to Tyree Nichols. There are some photos here also of the where did they go? Of the protesting. Demonstrators marched during a protest on Saturday, January 28th, this past weekend in Atlanta, over the death of Tyree Nichols. So I don't know. I guess like to be honest, I usually watch the videos for these things. Mostly because like if there's usually always some dirtbag who wants to argue over like the nitty-gritty details of like how you know, George Floyd was killed by fentanyl and not by the knee that was on his neck and obstructing his breathing. So I do like tend to watch these videos because I want to get the facts, just in case there's some asshole who wants to like argue some other thing. But I haven't watched this one, and I can't really say if I'm looking forward to watching it if I do watch it. Um, it just seems like a really sad video and an upsetting video to watch. So okay, some more pictures here from the protests happening in Memphis. Martyrs Park in Memphis, Tennessee, before heading into the march. Um, this is a beautiful shot. Um, Hands up. Um, I don't even know. I just don't know how in this day and age people are pro police when they just like there's so much violence that people face at the hands of police. And okay, so this was all right, this new Martin Luther King statue and Coretta Scott King statue in Boston called the Embrace. It's like I think they just released this statue. So, well, it's already proving to be quite a symbolic piece. Um okay, wow. NYPD officers detaining a demonstrator during a protest. Okay. This is what we like to see here. A demonstrator jumps on an NYPD patrol car at Times Square in New York amid protests against police violence. And you can clearly see that this person is kicking in the windshield of the police car. The cop is quite unfazed in this picture, at least. I guess it's not his car. Um. Okay, the Memphis Grizzlies stand for a moment of silence. Um. I guess I'm kind of getting flashbacks here to the NBA in the wake of George Floyd's murder. Feel like they were probably better than other sports organizations, but also I find to be these things quite symbolic. And there was a point when they were all going to strike in the NBA. I forget if it was related to Black Lives Matter, but and then like Obama intervened and said, "Hey, you can't strike" or something, which was kind of disappointing. Um, like they like if they really want this to get traction, like they would have to like stop playing. I think like be like, nope, we're not playing till the Memphis police are defunded. And I mean, like, I know that's hard to do. You're basically asking people to give up their salaries. Um, hey, good morning, lightly salted. I'm sure you must have had a busy weekend. Happy Monday. Um, you're asking people to give their salaries, even if they're making millions of dollars. Like that money is probably like spoken for. They have like their own families and whatever they're looking out for. So I don't know. I would like to see more action from celebrities. We'll see how it pans out this time. Um, so just some like really great photos from across the nation. I feel like this incident, it's not quite resonating in Canada the way the George Floyd uh protests protests were. Oh, did something happen this weekend? I'm pretty sure I'm glad you're here because I think you can maybe give us some of the highlights. We're talking about America still, but we will carve out some special time to talk about good old Canada. So anyways, moving on to Canada. I think we will, sorry, just to conclude that last segment, we will continue to follow the situation in the US and these civil rights protests that are happening. So I thought this was actually quite interesting though. Ontario court rules encampments can stay if there's a shortage of shelter beds. So this is coming from the Ontario Superior Court of Justice, and they have denied a municipality's request. I believe it is Waterloo Kitchener or something. Um, to remove a homeless encampment on the basis that doing so, um, when there is no adequate indoor space, would violate the residents' charter rights. So, I mean, this seems like such an obvious thing. It's been something that's been going on and very much been in the public eye as of late. I know that the police and city staff have been removing encampments in Peterborough and Toronto, and I'm sure a lot of cities. And so what they're saying is that you have a protected human right in the charter that the ability to provide adequate shelter for oneself is a necessity of life that is protected by the Canadian Charter in apparently section 7. I'm not a lawyer. I just debate lawyers on Twitch sometimes. Um so if people have a reasonable responsibility to themselves to provide an adequate shelter for themselves, and there's no available shelter beds, then it's completely unreasonable and a human rights violation, which is what, we've all been saying when we see these incidents, to remove these encampments and temporary shelters, tents, when there's unhoused people uh, occupying, their own living space, and basically, a situation that they've been forced into. So this ruling is actually quite effective because like it's actually bringing in the question to what does an available bed count as. For example, if you are addicted to a substance and there's a shelter bed open, but that shelter bed does not allow for the use of drugs within their shelter, then that really does not count as an open shelter bed, because that person actually doesn't have the choice to go there because they're an addict and they're likely to use the substance that they're addicted to, right? So it's great that we're actually asking these questions, and that there has been a couple rulings in Ontario and now I think British Columbia that are addressing this more in a more nuanced way. And like I know the city councilors here in Peterborough are always just like the really evil ones are always just like, well, why don't they go to the shelter? And we know that the shelter is not enough. So Lightly Salted saying, thank God we have this legal precedent now. Hopefully the city of Toronto gets their act together. Yeah, for real. And other places too, obviously, but Toronto is really destroying the lives of some people. Yeah, like it's a crisis that's happening the world over, and it's totally related to the opioid crisis and the housing crisis. And it's just wild how our governments collectively are pushing people to like the fringes of society, and then when they are there they push them even further. So there was a great point here at the end. What was it? um I think one of the things I definitely didn't understand before working in this area is the level of trauma that people experiencing homelessness deal with from being forced to move. Those of us who are housed have probably moved and lost our mind a little bit. If you're homeless, that's magnified by a factor of thousands, they said. So, I mean, yeah, like that's totally, I think, a great point to bring up, because, and something like I would hope to maybe use when I'm talking to people about this, because moving is stressful. I moved like from around, I got like rent evicted and moved around the corner. And you know what? That was really stressful. And I was moving from one nice living situation to another nice living situation. and I was really stressed and my partner was stressed. And how stressful do you think it is for someone who is just like has all of their belongings and in a tent and is, just like food insecure, and they're just trying to keep living, really. They're in survival mode, and they're being forced to relocate as well. Like it's just so obviously like a human rights violation. And I think relating it back to like how stressful it is to move, because we've all been there. How stressful it is for the landlord to raise the rent and force you to move, or move back with someone that you don't actually feel comfortable with. There's like so many incidents of like where being relocated is traumatic, even for privileged people. So we can only imagine um and sympathize with people who are being forced to move, and they're unhoused, and maybe they are addicted to opiates, and the drug supply is tainted. It's just like it's and yeah, that is another point too. Like when you're being forced to move, everything becomes unstable, so the likelihood that you're actually going to overdose also becomes increased. So anyways, this has just been on my mind. It's been a kind of hot conversation here in Peterborough as of lately. There was a panel discussion about it over the weekend, and it's infuriating. Like we just want human rights, and let's face it, we're all more likely to be homeless than we are to be millionaires. So um also happening, this is in Quebec, the 6th anniversary of the murders of 6 Muslim men at a Quebec City mosque. Honestly, I feel like this feels like it was not so long ago. Um and I guess it is great that they're still continuing to hold space and remember this incident. I think there were 6 men who died, um and 17 of their children collectively left behind. So it's really great to remember this. I think it's especially important in Quebec because there is a lot of racism in Quebec, particularly towards you know, people who are religious, and they are even trying to pass, you know, their racist bills that outlaw wearing certain religious symbols in public sector jobs. It seems like we're always covering a story about a Muslim teacher whose students love her and are pushed she's pushed out of working in a public school. There's so many. Yeah, Islamophobia is rampant in Quebec, to put it lightly. Thank you, lightly salted. To put it lightly salted. That's just a great way to summarize it. So it's good. I hope these are the type of things that need to continue, especially for Quebec. The other big news everyone is talking about in Canada, in the GTA, is that Hazel McCallion has passed away, the former mayor of Mississauga, where I was born. Um, Leaving quite a controversial legacy. I think a lot of people are critical of Hazel McCallion, including, myself. I often remember my father venting about Hazel McCallion and the corruption that she is kind of remembered for. There was something about I think she had a conflict of interest when she was the mayor, prioritizing her son's development company, and basically selling off something in Mississauga to her son's company. So, pretty controversial. To critics, more commonly remembered as the Queen of Sprawl, the dominant characteristic of the city she led. So, it's controversial figure for sure. Inspiring in some ways. I guess, because she was maybe so old and ruled as mayor of Mississauga for so long. Um, I guess girl bossing the sprawl. Um, but I think one thing that is kind of telling about her political legacy is kind of like who her friends were. You can see here, bottom right corner, she is giving a hug to Doug Ford. Here she is, bottom left, Kathleen Wynne. Top left, Bill Davis, who I guess was premier. This is like before I cared about politics. And Mike Harris, top right, in 1998. So quite a long legacy. Obviously, she's worked with some ghouls in her life, maybe even a ghoul herself. So a ghoul boss, if you will. So there's obviously they don't speak ill of the dead too much in mainstream media. But I think a controversial legacy for sure. So for some reason, the article that I read today in the paper, which was I think a bit more critical of her than these ones that kind of seem more like obituaries, I could not find it on the site for some reason. It kept linking me to this one, even though it seemed like there was a problem with the link, like it was linking to the wrong article. So a lot of public figures have also weighed in here on the passing of Hazel McCallion. So we, of course, starting with Doug Ford, who has even gone so far as to say that Hazel was his mentor. So anyways, there isn't a single person who met Hazel who didn't leave in awe of her force of personality. As I entered the world of politics, I was fortunate enough to learn from her wisdom and guidance, which she selflessly offered until the very end. Ontario Premier Doug Ford. There was a better, I think, more revealing quote in I was trying to do the Doug Ford cadence there. I think I'm actually quite good at it. I should have tried. I should practice. I think I don't know why I couldn't find the article. It's like Globe and Mail like didn't want people to see this, but it's in the print. Um uh Speaking in his office, Mr. Ford recalled Miss McCallion as a mentor and very close friend who would always give advice she believed in, whether he agreed or not. There's no politician in the country that really understood the grassroots, the people, more than Hazel did, Mr. Ford said of her regular appearances at community centers, places of worship, or local events. I went to so many events with Hazel, and make no mistake about it, she was the star of the show, no matter who she was with. Um, so, and he's going on here to call Hazel his favorite person. So, a lot of people have kind of made this connection between Hazel McCallion and Doug Ford, saying that her kind of Queen of Sprawl model is something that's influenced provincial politics and kind of is like paving the way, but for what is happening now, like with the green belts and getting in bed with developers. It's kind of like the Hazel McCallion playbook, which not really the great legacy that you would want to leave behind, but I'm sure lots of developers are singing her praises. Yeah, they're getting rich off of developing land, but also underdeveloping the public resources to make the quality of life good for the people living on that land. Okay, here's JT saying, "My dear friend Hazel was an extraordinary woman who wore many hats, a business person, an athlete, a politician, and one of Canada's and the world's longest serving mayors. Nicknamed Hurricane Hazel for her bold political style, she was unstoppable." Okay, thank you, Justin Trudeau. I guess she played hockey, which I think that's another reason why I'll never be able to get into Canadian politics. Like, I swear you need to like play hockey. Like, I need to like learn how to skate and take French classes if I ever want to be in Canadian politics. So, former Premier Kathleen Wynne, do your homework and have a plan. Advice for life and politics from a great woman. Hazel was one of a kind, and she gave so much of herself to all of us. Okay. Really, it's just like singing the praises of neoliberalism. It's like her funeral is basically like a neoliberal convention. Here's Bonnie Crombie, former or current mayor, right? Of Mississauga. It says here successor. I just want to confirm it's the current mayor, right? Yeah. I don't keep up with Mississauga politics too much. Hurricane Hazel inspired countless women to speak out and have their voices heard, to take the leap into politics and demand a seat at the decision-making table. So, okay, again, like girl boss, yeah, girl bossing that undeveloped land. So here's Mayor John Tory. She was the iconic mayor of Mississauga for 36 years and built that city from 78 to 2014. To me, she was also a friend and mentor. Why she's like the thing is she's a mentor for like some of the worst people. So that is a bit concerning. I wonder what her thought on land back was. It probably depends how you want to spin land back. I feel like the way that she might be spinning it was that, you know, we need to get this public land back to the developers. I spoke with her often and had the great privilege of meeting with her twice in the past 2 weeks, most recently on Tuesday when she was as engaged as ever despite her illness. Damn, she really was just girl bossing all the way, even on her deathbed. So here's Andrea Horvath. Hazel McCallion was a force to be reckoned with and a historic trailblazer when it came to Canadian politics. We will miss her passionate advocacy. Andrea Horvath, who is now the mayor of Hamilton. Okay, Patrick Brown, who's a conservative in Brampton, conservative mayor. Hazel McCallion wasn't just the mayor of Mississauga. She was Canada's mayor. She was the epitome of hard work and wisdom. You know, I guess what are people going to say about a deceased person, but it's just like it's kind of like a little much. I know we should respect the dead and all of that, but I feel like the people singing her praises kind of like reveal themselves as neoliberal tendencies. Hazel McCallion was a true trailblazer in the world of Canadian politics and life. During her unprecedented years as mayor, she brought about tremendous growth and development to Mississauga and made it one of the most prosperous cities in the country. Yes, I guess, you know, so it is a very prosperous city, but it also has a lot of problems. It's the I guess the queendom of sprawl, you know. All of these failed provincial politicians turned mayor. Forgot how much of a pattern that was. Yeah, for real. Including here in good old Peterborough. Our mayor is a former MP. Not a provincial politician, I guess, but you know, people who have tried and failed at the federal and provincial levels. They're like, oh, maybe I'll be mayor. I guess to Hazel McCallion's credit, she was the opposite of that. I think both Liberals and NDP tried to get her involved in federal politics. And she kind of like always refused and turned them down, saying that municipal politics is where you had to be in order to get things done. And by getting things done, she meant you know, helping her son's development company get things built so that they could continue to exploit the kind working people and the land of Mississauga.